At this moment, it was no longer just hundreds of thousands or millions of people cheering, but hundreds of millions, over 1 billion people. At this moment, Shen Lang became a true divine figure. Shen Lang bowed to the northern extreme direction of the ancient dynasty. Then he bowed again toward the direction of the ancient catastrophe relics of the temple. Dear sages, our mission is officially complete. In the Nuo Chao city, within the surrounding heavenly mansion, the emperor of the Great Kong Empire, Shen Ya, the queen of the West Lun Empire, Helen, the high-ranking officials of both the Great Kong Empire and the West Lun Empire, the representatives of the ancient new humanity, the queen of the Amazon, and the Lost Empire's queen, all were present in Shen Lang's study. Ladies and gentlemen, we have successfully overcome the third great extinction. We have finally completed the mission left to us by the ancient civilizations and the civilization of the ancient world. I am proud of all of you, Shen Lang said, his gaze slowly sweeping across everyone. Long live the Emperor! Long live! Long live! Reincarnation. This is a world where appearance matters. If you're ugly and don't have money, you won't even have the power to bear children, let alone have a prominent position in society. And if you're exceptionally ugly, even if you have money, you won't have a chance with a woman. And Shen Lang is a man so ugly that he doesn't even have the right to reproduce. Of course, Shen Lang wasn't born ugly. There was once a time when he was extremely handsome. From elementary school, he had girls secretly admiring him and passionately pursuing him. But Shen Lang, always focused on his studies, coldly rejected their letters and even handed them over to teachers. He ignored the chocolates given to him and the girls who made 1,000 paper cranes for him, throwing them into the trash. Perhaps because so many girls liked Shen Lang from a young age, his parents became shy and overly protective, teaching him to stay away from girls and focus on his studies. This situation continued until he turned 18. During his first year at the best medical university in the country, not only had he remained a virgin, but he had never even held a girl's hand. One day, whether by accidentally seeing his roommates' lovey-dovey gestures on the laptop or perhaps catching a glimpse of a female teacher in a short skirt, Shen Lang began to awaken, his longing for the opposite sex growing stronger. He decided to fall in love. For Shen Lang, love seemed like a light matter. With his looks and talents, all he had to do was choose the most beautiful girl and ask her to be his girlfriend. Of course, he chose the most beautiful one. He was only 18 and still unsure about what truly mattered in a person's soul, so he naturally chose the one with the best looks and the most attractive figure. Would he be rejected? Impossible. Shen Lang was too handsome for that. But right at that moment, an unexpected disaster occurred. While conducting an experiment, a bottle exploded, spraying acid on his face and chest. His once perfect, handsome face was destroyed. He went from an angel figure to a monster, so ugly that people couldn't bear to look at him for more than 2 seconds. His face was so disfigured, it would be a nightmare for anyone who saw it. Shen Lang went from being loved by everyone to being feared. No girl dared to look at his face for more than 2 seconds. And thus, he lost his right to reproduce. Professor Zhao often said in his World of Animals lectures, "When spring comes, it's mating season." Watching this, it always gave Shen Lang the feeling that animals worked all their lives for mating. As a child, he'd laugh it off, but after growing up, he realized this was the truth of nature. It wasn't just animals, it applied to humans too. After losing his handsome looks, Shen Lang chose to become a noble soul, dedicating himself to helping others. He graduated with a master's degree and didn't pursue a PhD or stay in the university hospital. Instead, he chose to go to a harsh frontier. 10 years of aid to the frontier, saving countless lives and earning numerous honors. Yet, no woman loved him. He felt that no matter how good he was, he still couldn't shine enough. So he decided to become even more noble, the kind of noble soul that would make people forget how terrifyingly ugly his face was. He chose to go to the most dangerous and difficult parts of Africa, working in war-torn countries, often spending days in field hospitals. In the war-torn countries of Africa, he spent around 10 years. He earned more honors, including those from the United Nations. Every day he spent healing, performing surgeries, and saving lives. He became a well-known figure internationally, a symbol of sacrifice, dedication, and selflessness. His ugly face appeared in many newspapers and magazines, and many women admired him, but no woman truly loved him.
By the age of 40, he was still alone. When his parents passed away, he felt even more lonely. He continued to work long hours, saving lives and performing surgeries without a break, like a machine. His superiors, concerned about his personal life, found a humble female nurse from a poor region to be his match. The nurse was simple, kind, and deeply admired Shen Lang. In a time when housing prices were sky high, it was almost impossible for people to find decent living spaces, yet the organization found her a place to stay. The goal was clear: to help Shen Lang find love. At the age of 45, Shen Lang finally decided to get married. Before the wedding, the beautiful nurse knelt before Shen Lang and cried bitterly. "I'm so sorry. I really can't do it. Every day feels like a nightmare." Shen Lang looked at her, his eyes shaking slightly, nodding slowly. "I understand." The nurse cried even harder, sobbing, But... Shen Lang replied, "I'll tell the authorities. It's my decision not to marry. It has nothing to do with you." The nurse, thankful, left the room. Afterwards, Shen Lang went on to perform 27 hours of surgery without a break, like a robot. For the next 2 decades, he continued to save lives, giving everything he had. He worked tirelessly without rest, becoming a living machine. During these years, he performed countless surgeries and saved countless lives, surpassing most doctors by over 100 years. In reality, it was proven that a noble soul like his could not attract a woman's love. The chances of a woman loving him despite his appearance were almost non-existent. He never blamed the nurse. Even lions would choose a mate based on strength and survival. How could humans be any different? His face, ruined by acid, was too terrifying for anyone to look at, and to ask a woman to love him for his noble soul and ignore his terrifying face was simply too much to ask. Shen Lang never once hesitated in performing surgeries for refugees, no matter how tired he was. Whoosh! A distant whistling sound approached, followed by a chilling feeling. Shen Lang knew it was a bomb heading straight for his head, but he didn't feel fear or try to avoid it. Instead, he felt a strange sense of relief. "I'm too tired, but it's a bit of a pity that women never sleep, and they die for real. If life could start over, I'd make sure to live the most relaxed life. Just eat, sleep, and never have to work like this again. If the heavens could return my beautiful face, I'd make sure to woo the most beautiful woman." Shen Lang silently swore to himself. Boom! The bomb exploded next to Shen Lang, instantly turning his body into dust, along with the nearby X-ray machine and laptop. Then, in the air, a vortex-like light appeared, sucking everything in.
Where is this place? Didn't I get blown to pieces? When Shen Lang opened his eyes once again, he found himself in a completely unfamiliar environment. He was lying on a soft, embroidered bed, surrounded by magnificent opulence. The redwood research desk, delicate silver candle holders, and soft goat wool carpets all signified a wealthy family. What was most striking was that everything in the room looked ancient, with no hint of modern earthly style. He looked down at his clothes. They were made of the finest silk, but the designs certainly didn't belong to the modern world. It looked more like something from a medieval drama. Beside the bed was a large mirror, which wasn't very clear and seemed to be made of bronze. Shen Lang struggled to sit up and, summoning all his courage, looked into the mirror. He couldn't blame himself. Ever since his face had been destroyed, looking in a mirror had become a nightmare, each reflection scaring him to the core. But when he looked into the mirror, he was stunned and then cried. Though his face was pale and worn, it was still incredibly handsome, almost identical to his face before the accident. Shen Lang confirmed one thing. He had crossed over, his soul having entered this strange world, inhabiting the body of a man he now recognized. It had been a long time since he had seen such a handsome, heroic face. Shen Lang looked at his reflection greedily. Heaven had truly given him a new life, restoring his handsome appearance even in this completely foreign world. This was wonderful. After his parents passed away, he had no real ties to Earth, so he was content with this second chance. Furthermore, his arrival here had already fulfilled half of his wish, restoring his handsome appearance. Though this body was somewhat weak and the health was fragile, he could still live in comfort. The other half of his wish was to live a carefree, rich life with women by his side, to live like royalty. At this moment, a rush of complex memories filled his mind, memories that belonged to the original owner of this body. It was a familiar but strange world. Familiar because it was very much like ancient China, with similar culture, writing, and people. Strange because this wasn't Earth, and the maps were different. This world had the 4 books and the 5 classics, and the ancient Chinese sages' teachings, yet there were no dynasties like the Qin, Han, or Tang. This was very odd. The map didn't match, the dynasties were different, but the origins of the culture were the same? Shen Lang tried to recall the memories of this world. He discovered that it had gone through a massive apocalypse, followed by a rebirth of civilization. The ancient scriptures had been carefully unearthed, becoming the key to the world's cultural revival. Therefore, the 4 books, the 5 classics, and other texts had an even higher position in this world. Not only that, but martial arts were also prominent here, with individual combat power surpassing that of ancient China. At this moment, Shen Lang found himself in the Great Yan Dynasty. It was a vast empire, with territory exceeding 14 million square kilometers, almost surpassing ancient China in terms of any dynasty. This dynasty was different from ancient China, as it had many vassal states surrounding the central empire. These vassal states were not dependencies, but rather vassals that paid homage to the emperor of the Great Yan Dynasty as the true ruler. In terms of cultural development, the Great Yan Dynasty far surpassed China's Spring and Autumn period and Warring States, and was closer to the Tang and Song dynasties. At this moment, Shen Lang found himself in the southern province, specifically in Yi County, Xuanyan City, located in the Great Yan Dynasty. He had crossed into the body of the original owner, whose name was also Shen Lang. The key point was that their appearances were almost 80 to 90% identical. This could not be a coincidence, and the complexity of the situation was beyond comprehension. After reviewing the memories of this body, Shen Lang felt that the Shen Lang in this world was a tragic figure.
Born in Xuyan City, Shen Lang had a poor background. His family was one of the many impoverished households in Yi County. When he was 2 years old, his family moved to Leifeng village. His parents were ordinary farmers with only 2 acres of farmland. Though they worked tirelessly, they barely scraped by. Despite his poor background, Shen Lang was highly favored by his parents, who doted on him and didn't force him to work. Though the family was poor, they still sent him to study. However, Shen Lang wasn't very bright. After 10 years of schooling, he could barely recognize 1,000 characters. It wasn't because he was lazy, he was actually very hardworking, but his intelligence was simply too low. He had the intelligence of a wooden head level, slow in reaction with a dazed expression. Other than his handsome face, he was almost a waste of space, known as the village idiot within a few hundred miles. His younger brother, Shen Zhen, had trained in martial arts for years, but had gained nothing. He had become a complete rogue. Though a rogue could still make money, Shen Zhen was bad at that too, constantly getting into trouble even among the rogues. As his parents grew older, their situation worsened, and they became so poor they had nothing to eat. The house had nothing but 4 walls. At 18, Shen Lang still couldn't read properly, spending his days in the lowest class at the school. Many of his peers had already passed the imperial exam, while he was still studying with 10-year-olds. This was an embarrassment for the village school, and despite his parents' efforts to pay for his tuition, even the teachers didn't want to teach him because he was too dumb. Eventually, he was expelled. Now, at adulthood, he could at least become a laborer, but due to his overindulgence from childhood, he could not even carry a load or perform farm work. He couldn't even chop wood, let alone work in the fields. So when he returned home, he spent his days drawing and writing with a wooden stick. His parents didn't resent him and still cared for him. Though Shen Zhen was a rogue, he treated Shen Lang well, even though he got into trouble daily. As these memories resurfaced, Shen Lang felt a warmth in his heart. The original owner of this body was not very intelligent, so he couldn't understand many things. Because rice was expensive and corn was cheap, his family would sell the rice for corn. Shen Lang was always the one who got the rice, while his family only drank corn gruel. When Shen Lang was young, his father occasionally hunted a rabbit, which he would sell for money. But every time he would leave the rabbit's foot for Shen Lang to eat, while his younger brother Shen Zhen would be left to watch. His parents were unfair, loving Shen Lang like a precious treasure while treating Shen Zhen like a weed. Also, because Shen Lang was so slow, people often bullied him and Shen Zhen would protect him, not knowing how many fights he got into because of it. It was a warm and happy time. So when these memories resurfaced, Shen Lang felt a deep sense of warmth. But if Shen Lang was so poor, why was his room here so beautiful and luxurious? Because he married into a rich household. To be exact, he became a son-in-law of a wealthy household.
Suddenly, something else in his mind arose with strange and miraculous images. He focused his mind, trying to unravel the mysteries in his head. At that moment, footsteps came from outside. That worthless person must be dead by now. He actually managed to survive for this long. But how many geniuses have died instead? Good riddance. At least he won't be delaying the young lady's life anymore. Exactly! How could a poor country bumpkin like him ever deserve to be with our young lady, let alone think he could marry her? His death is well deserved. But even though he's dead, it's good. Our young lady is a gem, always caring for him every day, speaking to him carefully. Tu Tiantian had once ordered that no one should mistreat Shen Lang. If they did, they would be expelled from the family. Therefore, the servants dared not speak ill of him before, but now hearing that he's dying, their patience had worn thin.
As the servants spoke with disdain, they opened the door to check on Shen Lang. "Let's see if he's really dead." One of the maids covered her nose and entered. But the moment she stepped in, she let out a shocked gasp. More than half an hour ago, he was barely breathing, his face already showing signs of death. Now, to her surprise, he was sitting up on the bed, still weak, but with a glimmer of life in his eyes. You aren't dead?" the maid exclaimed. "That's right, I'm not dead," Shen Lang replied. The maids were stunned and stared at him for a long time. Finally, the maid in charge said, "Hurry, go tell the master and the young lady Shen Lang is not dead." The maids hurriedly left the room, quiet, tense, as if something is about to happen. About 15 minutes later, a doctor arrived, brought by the butler. He examined Shen Lang's eyes, took his pulse, and after a long while, he exclaimed in surprise, "This is quite strange. Such a serious illness, almost fatal, yet he seems perfectly fine." The butler beside him asked, "Dr. Li, are you sure Shen Lang is all right?" "Yes, there's no danger to his life," Dr. Li replied. The butler smiled and said, "Dr. Li, you really are skilled. You've done wonders." Dr. Li hesitated for a moment before saying, "This is truly a coincidence." The butler replied, "Well then, Shen Lang, you should rest properly." After that, the butler and Dr. Li left the room. Shen Lang got up from the bed and stood in front of the mirror, carefully looking at his completely new self. He was incredibly handsome, though still weak, but exuded youthfulness and vitality. Not only that, but before, Shen Lang's handsome face had been somewhat dull, his expression blank, with little charm. He looked like a simpleton. Now his eyes were full of vitality, and his expression was vivid and profound, completely different from before. Rebirth is truly wonderful. After staring at himself in the mirror for half an hour, Shen Lang sat at the table and picked up a delicate book to read. Of course, at this moment, he wasn't really reading, he was just flipping the pages. He was pondering a question. How much was in his mind? Aside from the memories of the original Shen Lang, there were other things. He couldn't help but delve into his mind to explore further. Then, to his astonishment, he discovered something in his mind. An interface that looked like the desktop of a Windows 10 computer. This was truly astonishing. The image was very familiar, just like his Dell Alienware laptop from Earth, which contained a wealth of data, documents, games, movies, and more. On Earth, Shen Lang spent most of his time in surgeries, and his life was very boring. Plus, many areas in Africa had poor internet, so Shen Lang had to download tons of materials and documents onto an external hard drive. His laptop was his companion, keeping him entertained during his free time. Now, in his mind, he could easily open documents, movies, and games, all completely accessible. This was too miraculous. His Alienware laptop was now in his mind. But that wasn't all. Shen Lang also felt a very strange sensation, not in his mind, but in his eyes. He focused his mind and eyes, and then more incredible things began to happen. Everything he saw in front of him began to change. It wasn't just the normal way of seeing the world. He could see through drawers. He could see the water in vases, and he could even see the roots of plants in the flower pots. Yes, he could see through objects. This wasn't like the typical X-ray vision in some novels where one can see through a woman's clothes. No, this was actual X-ray vision. It was just like the X-ray machines in hospitals, able to see through a human body's bones and organs, or like the security checks at train stations that can see through bags. Then Shen Lang recalled that when the bomb exploded next to him, it not only shattered his body, but also destroyed an X-ray machine and a laptop. And now these things had followed him into this world. This was truly incredible. But was there anything else unusual that crossed over with him?
Just as he was thinking, the door suddenly opened, and a pleasant fragrance filled the air. Then a gentle and captivating voice echoed in the room. "Shen Lang, you're really all right. I'm so happy." Shen Lang turned around and looked. First, he saw through his X-ray vision a slim figure with visible veins and internal organs. Blinking, his X-ray vision faded and his normal sight returned. Then he saw a graceful beauty. Indeed, she was like a rare gem, with a delicate oval face that looked like it came straight out of a painting. She had a slender figure with just the right amount of curves, and skin as smooth as goat's milk. No wonder countless young men from Zhangjiang district were infatuated with her. Her beauty, figure, and elegance were truly impeccable. It was no surprise that Shen Lang had fallen for her the moment he laid eyes on her, even willing to sacrifice himself to save her. Not only was she beautiful, she also carried an air of grace and nobility, far beyond that of a merchant's daughter. She seemed like a noblewoman with a rich history. This woman, of course, was Shen Lang's wife, Tu Tiantian. When she saw Shen Lang for the first time, Tu Tiantian seemed a bit surprised, noticing a slight change in his demeanor. Though his face was still the same, his spirit and aura changed. She walked over to Shen Lang, sitting beside him, her curves accentuating her elegance. "Shen Lang, you're really all right. It's truly a blessing," Tu Tiantian said softly. Shen Lang nodded. Tu Tiantian paused for a moment and then spoke again. "These past few days, your parents have visited often. They are very concerned about you. Your mother even kneeled before me several times, begging me to return you to them. It's really a mother's heart." Shen Lang nodded again, but his response was slow and somewhat clumsy, making Tu Tiantian feel awkward. She had hoped to gently end their relationship, but seeing Shen Lang's reaction, she was unsure how to proceed. Just then, the door to the room was forcibly opened, and a majestic young man walked in. He approached Tu Tiantian, kissed her on the cheek, and scoffed. "This is a fool. How can you expect him to understand what you're saying?" He then turned to Shen Lang with a condescending look and said, "I'm called Zhang Zhen. You didn't die, huh? Well, now you can leave. You were just a puppet in this marriage. And now that you're healthy, you're not even worthy of a finger from Tu Tiantian. You've been expelled from the Tu family. You no longer have anything to do with us. Tu Tiantian is going to marry me, understand?" Shen Lang looked at Zhang Zhen and then at Tu Tiantian with a faint smile. "All right, I'll go home." Zhang Zhen sneered. "You idiot! You really don't understand, do you?" He then hugged Tu Tiantian and walked out of the room. Within half an hour, get out of the Tu family. If not, face the consequences, Zhang Zhen said coldly as he left.
The voice of Zhang Zhen echoed from outside. "We must act fast. The Chu family is trying to form an alliance with the Xuanmu Marquis' household. Once Chu Hongshui and Jin Mulan are married, their status will be too high and our wedding won't be as impressive." The Xuanmu Marquis Jin Mulan? Tu Tiantian's tone became somewhat complex.
Yes, Zhang Zhen replied. She is known as the Princess of Xuanmu City. His tone became even more complex. Then Zhang Zhen asked, have you met her often? Is she really as beautiful as they say, with such powerful martial arts and brilliant military strategies? Tu Tantian answered, the Princess of Xuanmu is very proud. She doesn't often attend our gatherings, and she doesn't even bother to respond to invitations from high-ranking officials' daughters. She's from a prestigious family that has been around for hundreds of years, so of course she's proud. By the way, this is a confidential matter, so don't speak of it to anyone. Tu Tantian gently responded, I understand the importance of this matter. After Zhang Zhen and Tu Tantian left, Shen Lang once again went to stand in front of the mirror, a mocking smile forming at the corners of his lips. The situation in front of him was not surprising in the least. As he read through the memories of this body, Shen Lang had long since realized that Tu Tantian had been dropping subtle hints for the past 2 months, such as mentioning fate or how her parents missed him. But the original Shen Lang, with his low intelligence, had never understood these hints, so he remained oblivious and continued to live happily in the Tu family. These hints had no effect, so a month ago, Shen Lang suddenly became gravely ill, with the reason already set. The evil energy had transferred to him. Of course, Shen Lang couldn't die right away, so the Tu family searched for various doctors. But in the end, it was all in vain, and about an hour ago, Shen Lang of this world had died. Who would have thought, though, that Shen Lang from Earth had crossed over and revived, defying death? Perhaps it was because of his miraculous revival, or perhaps for other reasons, but the Tu family did not directly kill him. The arrogant young master Zhang Zhen had pierced the illusion, and Tu Tantian had revealed the truth, directly ordering Shen Lang to be expelled from the Tu family and severing their marital relationship. Such haste! After crossing over to this world, his life as a son-in-law lasted less than an hour. It seemed like he couldn't have his soft rice meal here. It was time to find another bowl of rice to eat. Of course, as a doctor with X-ray vision, it would be easy for him to support himself and his family. Opening a clinic would be more than enough. But in his past life, he had spent his days treating and saving others, leaving him physically and mentally exhausted. In this life, he wanted to enjoy the luxuries and pleasures of life instead of being a doctor. After all, he'd worked hard in the past life, and now, with such a handsome face, he couldn't waste it. He had to find a much better place to settle. But before that, he had to first take care of his reputation and had to show those rich and beautiful and noble young ladies the value of his talents. Among the rich and influential families within a radius of a few hundred miles, who was unmarried? The Xuanmu Marquis's daughter, Jin Mulan. Indeed, she was the one Tu Tantian had mentioned earlier as the beautiful daughter of a 100-year-old noble family, the Princess of Xuanmu City. Shen Lang had nothing to collect as the Tu family had no assets belonging to him. He was ready to leave and set off to make his fortune. Bang! The door to the room was slammed open, this time with great force. The butler of the Tu family, accompanied by 4 martial artists, stormed in. He pointed at Shen Lang coldly and said, "How dare you, Shen Lang? A poor country bumpkin, living in our Tu family, not only stole money, but also misbehaved with the maidens. Such actions should have resulted in a painful death. But our Tu family is merciful and will spare your worthless life for now. The master has ordered the annulment of your marriage to our young mistress. Leave the Tu family immediately." Shen Lang couldn't help but laugh internally. At this point, it was clear they wanted to throw all the dirty water on him. In the months he spent as a son-in-law of the Tu family, he hadn't touched a single penny, let alone stolen anything, and the accusation of misbehaving with the maidens was even more absurd. For your sake and the sake of your family, you should know what to say once you leave, the butler said coldly. You were just a burden, so you must say you stole from the Tu family and misbehaved with the maidens. If you speak a single word of defiance, your entire family will suffer. Do you understand?" "I understand," Shen Lang replied. "Leave," the butler commanded. "All right, I'll leave," Shen Lang said as he made his way out. "Wait!" the butler shouted coldly. "Search him thoroughly. We can't let him steal a single penny from the Tu family."
The artist stepped forward and searched Shen Lang, but found nothing on him. "Your clothes alone are worth a few coins. A person like you, a fallen man, doesn't even deserve such luxuries," the butler said as he waved his hand. "Take him and throw him out." And so Shen Lang was expelled from the Tu family mansion. As he was being thrown out, the maids muttered as they pointed at him. "This useless person has finally been thrown out. Just a poor country bumpkin who lived off the Tu family for months. He's lucky he was even allowed to stay. How could the young mistress be with someone like him, even if they were married? It's truly disgraceful. Although, he really is quite handsome. Being handsome doesn't matter if you're as stupid as a pig. He's a complete waste." The Tu family mansion was huge, with dozens of acres of land, and it took a few minutes to walk out. "Get lost. Go back to your poor, rural home." One of the servants pushed Shen Lang forward. Shen Lang stumbled as he left the Tu family estate. Bang! The heavy door slammed shut behind him. He looked up at the sky. A bright moon hung high. It was already evening. He thought for a moment and found the direction from his memory. Shen Lang started heading northwest. His home was about 40 miles away, so he had quite a journey ahead of him, especially considering it was late at night. After walking a few hundred meters, Shen Lang couldn't help but look back at the Tu family estate. He would have his revenge, and it would come soon, in less than 3 days. The next steps of his revenge would be unrelenting, from dawn until dusk. Tuo Tian stood at the top of the mansion, watching Shen Lang leave. "This young man really is lucky," came the voice of a middle-aged man behind her. He was the head of the Tu family, the patriarch of their vast fortune. "Father, we were too obvious today. This could harm my reputation." "We have no choice," the Tu family patriarch said with a furrowed brow. "Master Zhang Zhen has to see this. Our Tu family needs a powerful backing, and Zhang Zhen is the best match for us. Making him happy is the most important thing. As for our family's reputation, it doesn't matter." Tuo Tian replied. "Also, Shen Lang is just a fool. Once he goes home, he won't speak out. He's so simple-minded. Of course, if he dares to speak out, his family will pay the price." Tuo Tian frowned slightly, feeling that her father's words were not something he should be saying. In the silent night, with the bright and hazy moon hanging in the sky, Shen Lang made his way home. The distant cries of animals echoed in the night. After walking about 10 miles, a few figures suddenly appeared in front of him. 5 armed men surrounded him, 3 in front and 2 behind. This was a desolate wilderness, far from any signs of civilization. "Young Master Shen Lang, come with us," one of them said. A piece of cloth was quickly tied around his mouth, making it impossible for him to speak, while another cloth was tied around his eyes. The 5 men dragged Shen Lang through the dense forest for about 15 minutes. Soon they brought him to a stop. Someone removed the cloth from his eyes, revealing a chaotic scene. There were 8 people in total, all armed with knives. 4 were digging a deep, long pit. "Boss, the pit's ready." "Let's begin," a hoarse voice said. "Take Shen Lang to the pit and bury him alive. Don't forget to offer the candle and incense after he dies so he can have a peaceful passing." They were going to bury Shen Lang alive. The group of thugs approached and prepared to push him into the pit.
As a handsome young man, Shen Lang was no match for these strong men. He could see death was imminent. "Wait!" Shen Lang shouted coldly. "Boss D, your time is running out!"
However, Shen Lang couldn't make a sound because of the cloth tied in his mouth. Only muffled noises escaped. The others couldn't understand what he was trying to say and ignored him completely. So Shen Lang just stared intently at the leader of the group. This man was probably in his 30s with 2 scars on his face, a cruel expression and a ruthless gaze. He wore soft armor. Shen Lang had seen this brutal man many times before. His name was Ding Shuang, a notorious leader of the underworld in the surrounding 100 miles. His subordinates numbered over 100, all dead disciples of his, involved in gambling, brothels, and various other illegal trades. He was known for his brutality and had probably killed many. He also had another identity, a leader in the Xuanwu City militia. The group started to push Shen Lang into the pit to bury him. Normally, people would cry and beg, but Shen Lang remained eerily calm, staring at Ding Shuang's face and then examining his entire body, his eyes displaying a strange expression. He was using his X-ray vision to look. This intense gaze sent a chill through anyone who saw it. Finally, Ding Shuang couldn't contain his curiosity. He raised his hand and his 4 subordinates stopped filling the pit with dirt. Ding Shuang walked up to Shen Lang, removed the cloth from his mouth, and asked, "What are you looking at?" Shen Lang replied, "You have a needle in your body. If it's not taken out, you'll face a life-threatening situation." He wasn't lying. There was indeed a needle in Ding Shuang's body, a very fine silver needle located near his lungs. If it wasn't removed, it would eventually reach his brain and kill him. Shen Lang could see it thanks to his X-ray vision. Hearing this, Ding Shuang was surprised. Shen Lang continued, "The needle is in your lung's main artery. It will circulate with your blood. If it reaches your brain, you'll die." Ding Shuang was even more shocked and asked, "How do you know this?" This was a secret even Ding Shuang's wife didn't know. And now this fool knew about it. It was too strange, almost supernatural. Shen Lang said, "I can help you remove it." Ding Shuang stared at Shen Lang for a long time and then said, "You say you're a fool, but you don't seem like one." Shen Lang replied, "This needle needs to be removed, otherwise you will definitely die, and I am the only one who can help you." Ding Shuang raised his hand, "But the condition is that I spare your life, right?" Shen Lang shook his head. "I don't need to ask to know who did this to you." Ding Shuang squinted his eyes. "You're definitely not stupid." Then he shook his head. "But I'm sorry, I can't agree." Shen Lang's eyes narrowed. He had thought this transaction was a sure thing. Even if someone paid Ding Shuang to kill him, what did money matter compared to life? Shen Lang could save his life, so there was no reason for Ding Shuang to refuse. There could only be one reason. Ding Shuang couldn't remove the needle because the person who placed it there was someone he couldn't resist. There was a backstory to this, but this would be troublesome. If the needle couldn't be removed, Shen Lang's impressive medical skills wouldn't help, and this deal couldn't be completed. Ding Shuang said, "Your younger brother owes us some money." "Younger brother owes money?" 3 months ago, your father was injured. To help him, your brother borrowed 10 gold coins from my shop to hire a doctor. Now the debt has grown to 100 gold coins. This was worse than usury. In just 3 months, the debt had grown tenfold. But what Shen Lang cared about wasn't the interest, it was his father's injury. 3 months ago, that was when he was living as a son-in-law in the Tu family. His father had come to the Tu family to try to take Shen Lang home, but he was chased out by the family servants. He must have been beaten badly. At that time, Shen Lang was still a fool and didn't know about it. Shen Lang truly had been unable to help himself, in love with a woman like Tu Ti Khan, and didn't even care about his parents. He was truly foolish. "Because your family can't pay this debt, I decided to bury you alive. This has nothing to do with anyone else, understood? And as a token of our sincerity, we'll destroy your home and deal with your family as well." Shen Lang understood,
Someone had paid Ding Shuang to do this, but they needed a legitimate excuse. So they used the debt as a reason to kill his family. We have no grudges, but I still want to kill you. Sorry. Then he stood up and said, give him a quick death, then bury him. Understood. A warrior stepped forward, drew a small knife, and aimed for Shen Lang's throat. He was about to end his life. Wait! Shen Lang shouted loudly. How much did someone pay you to kill me? I'll give you 10 times that amount. I'll give you 1,000 gold coins. As soon as he said this, the warrior halted the knife just a few inches from Shen Lang's throat. Ding Shuang was surprised. This Shen Lang was no fool. He was extremely clever. From their brief conversation, he had deduced that someone had offered him 100 gold coins to do the job.
I'm very tempted, Dian Huang said. But the thing is, you're so poor you can't even afford a meal. Your father is still lying in bed. Your younger brother had his legs broken. And you can't even come up with a single gold coin, let alone 1,000. This was all Shen Lang's fault. His stupidity and his loyalty to the Tu family had caused his father and brother to suffer serious injuries, even life-threatening ones. In this world, 1,000 gold coins was an enormous sum. Ordinarily, a laborer's family would save barely 2 gold coins in a year. Using rough estimates, 1,000 gold coins was equivalent to about 5 million yuan on Earth. This is a huge sum. You'll never be able to raise it, Dian Huang continued. Shen Lang said, but you can take a gamble. If you win, you can make a huge profit. Even if you lose, you can just kill me after a few days. That wouldn't delay you from getting your 100 gold coins from the Tu family. Dian Huang hesitated. It seemed impossible for Shen Lang to raise 1,000 gold coins in 10 days, but considering that he had been able to see the needle in his body earlier, there might be something miraculous about him. Shen Lang said, 10 days, 1,000 gold coins. Dian Huang stared at Shen Lang's handsome face, hesitated for a long time, and finally said, 3 days. I can only give you 3 days. Shen Lang understood. The deal Dian Huang had made with someone was also 3 days. If he killed Shen Lang within 3 days, he would get the 100 gold coins. All right, it's a deal, Shen Lang said. Dian Huang said, dig him out. The 4 warriors began to dig, pulling Shen Lang out of the pit. They had no paper or pens on them. Shen Lang immediately tore a piece of white silk from his clothes, used his finger to write a loan agreement in blood, a note saying that he owed Dian Huang 1,000 gold coins, and then signed his name. As he wrote, he muttered inwardly, what a load of nonsense. A golden hand, huh? There's no money, just gold coins to save my life. Dian Huang took the bloody note and stared at Shen Lang for a moment. This was the so-called Shen Lang who had a low IQ. Truly absurd. 3 days to raise 1,000 gold coins, or I'll kill your entire family. You two escort Shen Lang back home and stay with him for the next 3 days. Yes, the 2 warriors bowed. Then Dian Huang left with the other 3 warriors. Remember, Shen Lang, 3 days, 1,000 gold coins. If you fail, your entire family dies. His figure disappeared, but his cold voice still echoed in Shen Lang's ears. No problem, Shen Lang replied, his mind racing. He quickly came up with a plan. Not only would he make a large amount of money, but he could also protect his family. The most important thing was, he would get his revenge on the Tu family. 1 move, 3 benefits.